Welcome to It's Your Life with host Joyce Wheeler, who will empower you to live a happy, healthy, natural life.
Welcome, everyone. I'm your host, Joyce Wheeler, and you are listening to It's Your Life, Live It to the Fullest. Today is Friday, July 15th, 2016. You're listening to Haggy Shack Radio and Will Spirit Radio. Please remember that we're listener-sponsored, so click that donate button and show us some love. Today, my guest is Jennifer Hough. She's a speaker, best-selling author, and expert in applied physics. Her work is to assist each of us to awaken in our innate abilities beyond the five senses, to live life in flow and passion, and to truly experience our lives as a piece of the puzzle of heaven on earth in this lifetime. Her magnetic style and authenticity have blown audiences away all over the world. She's been emanating her special kind of light from Peru to Hawaii to Toronto to Germany and Australia, igniting flames of peace, passion, and effortless flow wherever she goes. Jennifer is a supreme lover of life that will activate your cellular yes, making that little voice in your head highly uninteresting to listen to. Her mission is to cause heaven within us, so we can all bring heaven with us wherever we go. The programs she teaches are Get Out of Your Own Way, Awakening Alchemist, Innate Abilities, Flourish, and Flight School. She also takes those ready to have the full experience on awakening adventures all over the world. Welcome, Jennifer. It's great to have you.
I am so happy to be here, Joyce, with you and all the listeners, really.
I am so thrilled to have you.
Well, it's going to be a juicy conversation given the topic and even recent world events, you know?
Great. Yeah, and our topic tonight, we're going to be talking about integrating your human superpowers.
Yep. So important in these times of great change when crazy stuff happens in the world, right?
Right. And, you know, you feel that right now that more people are being called to their purpose.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's huge reason for that too. I mean, Joyce, is such a big, just even saying that opens up this massive can of worms, because if you imagine, you know, I did this I collected some data and I was looking at how many people came before the amount of people that are on the planet right now, which is about 7.5 billion right now. And what I did is I collected information according to history for how many people have ever been on this planet, like in total, up until the last, generation. Or the last few generations. And it's about 7.5 billion people. Isn't that interesting? So who's ever been on the planet is the same number as who is on the planet right now, which is kind of fascinating.
Oh, wow, that is.
Yeah, and I thought to myself, okay, what's the significance of that? Let's pretend that it is significant. I have no idea if it is or not. But, you and I, and probably most of your listeners, and maybe you don't and maybe you do, but probably know that our wishes, our yearnings, our desires are all heard in physics and are responded to in physics by creation, by the universe, by whatever the case may be, however you want to language it or whatever you believe. And if you imagine 7.5 people have actually come before us and and kind of imagine what's happened, medieval times with Jesus and the Romans and all that kind of stuff and stuff predating that, and then prehistoric man and all that kind of stuff, and all the struggles and the strife and the evolution of our consciousness, and all the world wars that we've had. Imagine the people that were involved in all of those things, what in their heart of hearts they were truly wishing for. Because if you were either on the, let's say, perpetrating end or victim end, no human being wants to either kill another fundamentally, nor do they want to be hurt by another. So
Right.
There's this underlying, how do we get to that place of harmony? So imagine that 7.5 billion people, before we ever got here, were already without knowing what prayer or intent or any of that is, we're already emanating the possibility that the world could be a different way. In fact, I would say that most people that we work with all know that harmony is possible. They just don't know how to get there.
Right.
And, right. Harmony in their own lives then begets through 6 degrees of separation and also a fractal universe, meaning a universe where every pattern affects every other pattern. If you move a molecule of water, you move the entire ocean because one molecule affects it all. So it's the same kind of universe. If I find more harmony for myself, then through every dimension, there is change because I found more harmony and more deeper understanding for myself. So everything is affected. So when we go back to your comment, which was, really around, the whole idea of, what's going on the planet, what's actually happening, why are most people being called to their purpose? The answer to that is this. The asking of 7.5 billion people in a fractal universe has been heard through every dimension, has been heard through every lifetime we've ever lived, and at some point, a tipping point had to have been reached. So there's a couple of things that I want to say about that I think are really crucial, Joyce. One of them is that through a fractal universe, if everyone has been affected by that yearning, and at some point, about 17,000 years ago, human beings really chose to start to give their power away to things they didn't understand. So like creation, gods, things that looked like they couldn't really, there's no scientific or otherwise explanation for them. So we started to say the sun is a god and that is a god and this is a god until finally through some bizarre, happenstance, human beings which were born to be creators, which were born, born with abilities to be able to create like no other species on Earth, even in the universe. And here we are, these creative species, and what we're doing is we're saying, no, we're not creator consciousness in human form. All of that creative force is out there. We're just lowly human beings. And when you separate yourself from that creative force, what happens is you live a life of there's not enough. There's limited resources, there's limited money, there's limited love, there's limited nice people, there's limited everything. There's limited air, there's limited good water to drink, and you basically create a world where there's only so much to go around, and now you have to create mental strategies and fight each other to actually get there, which is the cause of a lot of problems right now. But why people, yeah.
When you mentioned us giving our power away, mm-hmm. is that what you mean by us giving our power away? Caving into the concept that there's not enough?
Well, the idea of giving our power away, we said that God or creation or that which made all this amazing stuff that we're witnessing, or that which knows how to give birth to other beings, or, all of that kind of stuff, that's not our doing. That's some magical being out there, or some magical realm out there. So in other words, giving your power away says that you are not the magical being. The magical being is somewhere out there, and the goodness gets bestowed upon us. And in half the religions in the world, the goodness doesn't get bestowed upon us while we're here. The goodness gets bestowed if you're a good enough person while you're here. Then right. You get all the goodness when you die, which is just absolutely silliness if you're creator consciousness. So giving your power away is really saying, it's all out. I am not special. I am just a lowly human being with no and I need mental strategies, and I shouldn't even seek to understand the complexities and the amazingness of this universe. I'm just going to try to survive my life. And the instant you say God is out there is the instant you're going to be seeking strategies to try to survive your life, and you're going to spend the rest of your life trying to survive your marriage, trying to survive your financial stuff, trying to survive your health, trying to survive until you get an RV and you drive around North America or whatever, and then you finally die of some dreaded disease and you just don't want to suffer too much, when that is not the design of human beings at all. That is nowhere close to how we were designed. So when we say,
I think that's really funny that you mentioned driving an RV around. I don't know if we talked about that in the conversation that we had, but that's kind of something my husband and I have been talking about.
Right. And it's like, well, it's like something that we aspire to when even more than that is available. So, oh my God, so much is available for love, for abundance, it's ridiculous what's available to human beings. And, I think probably one of the things that comes to mind right now for people is, how would I even know that? How do I know? And why should I believe you? Because who are you?
Wow.
And, right? Because I'm just saying some stuff, and who am I really to say all that? Who am I to say that? Because now what? You're going to give your power away to me too? So how do I know? Is really, I would love to speak to that because.
Please do.
Yeah, because I basically, I grew up in a middle class family with a father who was very domineering and controlling and a mother who was very submissive. And they were both lovely people. They still are very lovely people. But, it's very typical of many people's upbringing who are around my age, anywhere from 40 to 60 or 35 to 65. And the interesting thing is this. At some point, I remember always feeling like I was on the outside. I always felt like misunderstood. I always felt like I looked at things differently. And I went to university and I realized that I did look at things differently. I could sort of see things from 30,000 feet. I could see why people were arguing. I couldn't understand why politicians wouldn't talk to each other and just resolve their stuff by understanding each other. I knew that, there should be a good news newspaper, and some of you might be relating to what I'm saying right now. I don't understand. This is craziness on the planet. And it really is only a certain echelon of people that think that way, that are willing to believe that something more is available for humanity. But I didn't realize, Joyce, that thinking that way is actually a thing. It's not like just you're weird. It's actually a way of thinking that is for 10% of the population or less that really question everything and are looking for the fast track solutions to the world being different, their lives being different, and they're willing not to believe anybody, but to be curious about everything, right?
Right. Exactly.
So I'm sure you're in that ballpark too, huh?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So why? Well, because what happened to me is I probably am the most skeptical person on the freaking planet. I went to university for economics and accounting. And also for sociology. And I ended up graduating, I think, with a major in sociology and a minor in economics, mostly because I didn't want to pursue economics because it was so boring. And I ended up graduating from sociology because it was so cool. And so what happened to me is I ended up working for a major multinational company, and I was a purchasing manager, and in the middle of a performance review, I just had an instinct to leave. And I'd never had one of those weird instincts before, but I just knew. And I said, I have to leave. And she goes, what, to go to the washroom? And I said, no, I really can't work at the company anymore. And she said, why? And I said, I can't. There's something more my life is called to. And I didn't even know, it was the first time I even had the thought. It was the middle of a performance review. So it was very weird.
Wow.
So then I went to live on a sailboat because that's all I could afford. So I lived on this little sailboat, and I got really sick because I don't want to bore people with the details, but I basically had to finish the bottom of the boat. with a bunch of epoxy and some bottom paint, and I didn't use the right protective gear, and I could have killed myself, and I didn't even realize that was true. I sort of did it invincibly. So that was my first foray into holistic nutrition after spending about $30,000 on all sorts of other modalities to try to get myself better. I ended up going into holistic nutrition with absolutely no knowledge of it whatsoever, right? Sociology and economics, like no knowledge of biology, anatomy, like nothing. So what ended up happening is I saved my own life. And people started seeing that, you know, at 30 years old, I looked like I was 20. And at 40 years old, I looked like I was 30. You know, it's like, what are you doing? And so I developed the largest holistic practice, a nutrition practice in Canada. I actually had a huge, huge practice because I had this passion that I saved my own life. But what I didn't realize is I still was getting migraines once a month instead of 8 times a month. So I'd healed, but it came across to me one day, it's like, why am I doing 4 cleanses a year? Why am I taking this many supplements? Why do I have to restrict my food down to probably about 1/10 of what's available to the rest of human beings? Aren't I a divine child of an infinite universe? Shouldn't I be able to be free? And if I am creator consciousness in human form, shouldn't I be able to do this? And I started getting wakening dreams. It was sort of the next stage, like stage 2 of saving my own life. I started getting wakening dreams, Joyce. And remember, background is multinationals. I have no crunchy granola-ness in any of my history with my parents. They're very practical people. My father is an entrepreneur and my mother is a teacher, you know, a gym teacher. So, you know, I have no tree hugging in my background. And all of a sudden I'm like hearing voices and having wakened dreams that are so real I can't even imagine it. I'm talking to dead people. I'm seeing the hologram of people's biology. Then I'm started to see the hologram, the future and the past of their, what's ever happened to them ancestrally and in this lifetime. And all of a sudden, and I have no idea what to call it or what it is. Neither did anybody else. And it was pretty freaky. It really, you know, I wasn't sure if I wanted to stay on the planet anymore. Wow. But, you know, it was a really super big deal to me. And it was like probably about 15 or 20 years ago now probably 15 years ago. And so for me, it's applying the knowledge that I got told in those wakened dreams, which are really about who we are and the fact that we have multi-dimensional, we do. Every human being has at least 24 superpowers that lie in codes, that provide us with the ability to intuit, provide us with the ability to see energies, provide us with the ability to commune directly with nature, to talk to our pets and animals. All these things that people think are gifts that other people have are actually abilities that every single human being has. And even by giving our power away to the people that we perceive have the gifts, by virtue of that, just like we give our power away to something great and awesome in a throne up there in the sky, even if you give your power away to a psychic or anything, what you're doing is you're saying, oh, you have that ability, but I don't. And after working with tens of thousands of people all over the world, but first and foremost, always, because I'm the hugest skeptic ever, actually working on myself and doing what I was told in those dreams and coming to integrate with those what we call human superpowers or innate abilities, as I started to activate those codes through me, what happened is I could do all of those things, all 24 of them. And I'm like, holy crap. You know, I really thought, first of all, thank God I didn't have a crunchy granola background because I really would have thought it was for only special people. But fortunately, I didn't have that background that got in the way of me kind of downloading all the information. And it was very clear to me that this information was not to be used so that I could become someone who was, you know, of course I'm a seer. Of course I can, you know, when it serves, I can go future and past and see holographically and look at energies and orbs, and of course, yes. But the point was not for me to do that for everyone and get some TV show and do all that silliness. It really was to activate all of those superpowers so that everyone could catch up to who they really are. And the reason is, if we full circle the conversation, you and I at the beginning were talking about why are so many people being called to their purpose?
Right.
Like what's going on there? Well, so many people are being called because for the last 17,000 years or so, human beings have started to give their power away to something out there. So they've had all of this, what people call junk DNA and parts of their brain that they don't use. And it started atrophying 17,000 years ago because we stopped using it, because all of those superpowers made you more godlike, and we were taught that that was bad. In fact, you're going to hell if you are psychic,
right.
Or you're going to get burned at a stake, or you're going to get hung on a cross, or you're going to get, you can't be like that. So
right. I actually talked to a neighbor of mine the other day, and I was talking about you, and she said, doesn't the Bible say that you're not supposed to involve yourself with people like that?
Right. Sure.
And, well, my reply to her is that, well, you know, the Bible's been toyed with, so who knows exactly what it is. I mean, at the same time, Yahushua said you could do all these things and more. So what did he mean when he said that? As far as I can tell, he's telling them, you can heal people, you can walk on water, you can do everything I could do and then more.
Jesus said exactly that. Yeshua said exactly that. That you could do all of these, that you are made in the image of God. He was made in the image of God. We absolutely have all of those. That's all Jesus was doing. Let me show you how we can heal people and the world and our hearts and our souls. And he went around and he did it. And he said, but don't worship me. Do it yourself. That's exactly what he said. And that's what he was trying to teach. So what's really funny is, you know, for thousands of years, everyone who said, well, let me show you, or no, you can do this, or I can do this and let me show you, they were judged as heretics, which is really funny. But if we bring it back around to that, so even you, look, Joyce, don't you have this powerful calling that's so overwhelming that you almost don't know what to do with yourself next sometimes?
Oh, definitely.
Right? Like it's as though there's something calling you forward. Half the time you don't even know what the stinking thing is, but you feel like there's so much more that you need to do with your life. And the thing is, all of us are the people that were the wave of leaders that came to this planet who had the capacity to integrate with that junk DNA such that we could upgrade and activate those superpowers. And that one of the first things to start to upgrade is the ability to tap into the piece of the puzzle of heaven on earth that we are. The problem is we haven't fully upgraded all of the abilities, so we can't see it that clearly. And we also haven't upgraded the other 23 abilities, so what happens is we don't know exactly what to do, because the ability to see energy, the ability to feel what's going on in consciousness, the ability to know what's going on with others so that we don't feel a victim of them, and we can actually change the energy of any situation because we instantly know exactly what to do. Everyone that's listening has had moments of those things, but it actually should be our default way of being. Like, just imagine that that is just your default way of being. You literally live in your knowing. You're like a walking meditation. You don't need to meditate anymore because you're going direct with consciousness. You're bypassing the protective mechanisms. You know what to say to your sweetie pie when you're in a challenging situation and you're having a fight every time. You know how to do it in cosmic timing so that you're not doing it from reaction because your little girl is hurt. You're actually doing it in cosmic timing, watching the magic unfold of the two of you come together because you're using your innate wisdom rather than the reactivity and the lack of clarity as your guide. So all of these are your superpowers, and it makes life so much easier. So the reason we're being called, the reason we feel that calling is more accurate. The reason we feel the calling to our purpose, even if we don't know what it is because slowly but surely over the next 30 to 50 years, we're all going to get upgraded with these abilities. no matter what. Some people are even going to leave the planet over it because they don't understand themselves. They don't understand. I just talked to a 22-year-old girl this morning. She's so sensitive and she sees so much and she feels so much. And all of the psychiatrists say that there's something wrong with her. She's broken and she needs fixing. And this morning we had the most amazing conversation. I said, do you see this? And do you see what that plant over there is doing? And do you feel what's going on with your mother right now as you and I are talking? And do you see that lady driving? And she knew everything that I could see. And I said, sweetie, you're not broken. You're just before your time. Good for you. So would you like me to teach you how to use those and upgrade your abilities so that you can actually use them to change the stuff that's going on in the world? And she's like, oh my God, yes. I said, don't you feel like that's why you have those abilities? She said, yes, but no one's ever showed me before. So she was so grateful. So, okay. So Joyce, I think one of those, again, it's sort of one of those things that people understand, sort of, but we don't understand. We get that there's more to life. We get that harmony is possible on the planet. We get that we should be living in way more fluidity. Exactly. So the fact that we get it is the most important thing. But how do you do it is based on those superpowers and innate abilities. Otherwise, what we're doing is we're inventing it as we go without any help. And one of the things our ego has done has said, why don't you do it all by yourself? Because you'll never figure it out, or it'll take you 30 years. You'll be dead before you get there, before you really get to the state of leadership that you could be. And that's another paradigm shift that needs to change. We have to stop trying to do, you have no idea how many people I have to have it's like, let me show you, oh my God, what your piece of the puzzle of heaven on earth is completely going to change the world. Good Lord. Let me activate those superpowers so that we can not have things like what happened in France today happen again. Right?
Well, the thing is though too is that we're basically, taught that we have to depend upon others. It's the whole system. You have to go to school because you can't teach yourself. You need somebody else to teach you.
Right.
And then you have to get a job because you have to work to support yourself. You have to bust your butt 8 hours a day to make your money so you can, pay for all the stuff that they tell you you're supposed to have. You have to have a house. You need 2 cars and you need this and you need that. And
well, just to confuse things, you're
so
also
bombarded.
Yeah, well, just to confuse it all, Joyce, then you're told, but you're on your own because no one's really going to look after you like you will.
Yeah.
You're by yourself, so you better listen to your own instincts and stuff because ain't no one else going to help you. So it's like conflicting messages when the truth is, when you rise of all of those, okay. So if you can imagine, Joyce, okay, this is what I call awakening schizophrenia, okay? So if you can imagine, over here on the left is what we're no. Let's do it under and over. Let's imagine that under a certain point, under a certain line, okay, we're going to say that everything below that is the shoulds, musts, and have-tos that human beings have tried to strategize and put together for the mind to try to survive. You with me?
Yeah.
So everything you just said, you need the cars, you need to get a job, you should go to college, you should blah, 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 blah. All of those, you need to be a good person or you're not going to go to heaven. It's like all of it. You need to be a certain weight or you're going to die early. For God's sakes, don't smoke, the whole thing. Okay? So there's everything below that line is a paradigm. It's a matrix. In fact, it's very similar to The Matrix, like the movie.
Right.
And we're going to say that everything above that line, I call it above the cloud, where the sun is this place where your wisdom lives and where what happens is very nonlinear, right? So it would be like, stuff like, when I went to, I was telling this story the other day where I went on a plane and I said, okay, universe, show me. Let's have fun. Show me how nonlinear it can be. I tried to get a first class seat, couldn't, wanted to upgrade. I knew it was going to be inexpensive. And the lady pointed to this guy and she said, that guy over there took your seat. He said he got the last first class seat and I stuck out my tongue at him. So then I'm like, oh, that's so annoying. And so I went and sat down. I said, I'm still playing the game, universe. Universe is just smiling at me, right? And we go to load onto the plane, and I knew that the baggage thing was going to be completely full. So I put my bag while the flight attendant wasn't looking right in the first class, area because I knew it was going to be able to go anywhere. And I looked to my left, and this lady was sitting there with a doggy, a little puppy dog, right?
They allow dogs on planes?
Well, it was a therapy dog because unbeknownst to me,
okay.
this woman had a migraine. So it was a little, and I thought, oh my God, how great would that be if I sat on a plane and I had a puppy on my lap? I would love that. So I walk back to 21C. I sit down and no, it actually was 21B now that I think about it. It was in the middle because I'm 5'10" and I'm like a big person, and to sit in the middle is like my least favorite place to sit. So I'm sitting there like grumbling, right? Like stupid universe. and I'm like, but I'm still playing. So what happened is the dude that had that seat happened to be the dude that had the seat beside the lady with the dog was the guy that got the last seat that I stuck my tongue out. And he walked back to 21B and beside me there was a nice gentleman and he said, that's my law partner, and we need to discuss a case before we get to wherever the heck it was I was going, San Francisco or whatever. And he said, I need to sit in your seat. Can I trade you, and do you want to sit in the first class? So I said, ooh, let me think about it a little bit. Yes. And on a plane full of people, I was selected to sit in first class beside the lady with the dog. As soon as I sat down, I noticed my bag was already beside me. Wow. And the little doggy in the lady's lap jumped onto my lap, and I rode on the rest of the flight with the dog in my lap.
Wow. That's awesome.
And then, just to top it off, my beginnings in nutrition were because I used to get migraines. Remember how I said that?
Yes.
Okay, the lady beside me had horrific migraines. And one of my areas of mastery, even before I started to be able to see energy and why everything was happening, was actually migraines. And I taught her over the course of the 2.5 hours how to actually completely sort of disentangle from the things that were causing her migraines on planes. And she could dance with it she actually had freedom to dance with it the entire time when I showed her. And then she asked me to speak at the migraine conference the head injury conference that she was going to, and they would pay me $5,000. So that was my
awesome.
But that's when you're using your human superpowers. That's just how it is, Joyce. That's above the cloud. Okay, above that line, it's non-linear. None of that made sense. I couldn't even the idea of intention and law of attraction goes completely out the window. Because it's not intention. I didn't intend any of that. I attracted it, but I attracted it because I was willing to play, and I attracted it because if it wasn't through intention or prayer or whatever, I didn't pray or intend any of that to happen. There's no way I could have even dreamt it up. It was so much better than what I could have dreamt up. It was ridiculous, right? And what they were trying to do is prove a point, and what I would spend the rest of my life teaching, which is the universe totally saw who you were before you ever got here. You're a piece of the puzzle of heaven on earth. Your skill sets that you've ever had in every lifetime, everything you've ever lived through every experience you've ever had, even in this lifetime with your parents, with what happened to you, all adds up to this powerful now, even in this conversation. And the important thing to know is, if you are a piece of the puzzle of the unfolding heaven on earth, that means that you're a bridge from where humanity has been to another place. And the more you bridge your life into the harmony that's possible by embodying those abilities and living in the kind of flow I just described, like every day, all day long, what happens is you're opening portals for tens of thousands of other people to be able to do the same, because if it's possible for you, In a fractal universe where one drop can affect the whole ocean, if you shift and you open a portal, you just affected the entire ocean of people by opening up that possibility for all. So now we go back to, why are so many people, go back to the original question, why are so many people being called to their purpose? Because in order to actually reach the tipping point where people don't kill people because they feel like they're not heard, they're not listened to, they're not understood, because they feel like someone else is taking away from them. They feel like the universe is limited. They feel like they don't have their superpowers. In order for this whole planet to change, it has to change one person at a time. And everyone, or at least there would have to be a critical mass of people that would have to realize that our enoughness is not up for question, and that there are no limitations to resources. We are the abundance. If an acorn can grow to an oak tree, anything can happen.
Right.
I
believe that. I don't believe that we have limited resources, and I do believe there's an abundance out there. It's just my thing right now is, how do I access that?
Well, that's the point, isn't it? I think everybody realizes that we're unlimited. Having the belief that we're unlimited is a start.
Right.
But actually activating, like, how do you actually fly? Like, how do you live above the clouds consistently? How do you permanently change the way we embody our experience on the planet such that we show up entirely differently for consciousness? Does that make sense?
Yeah, one thing that I just want to go back a little bit to where you were talking about being sick, because I've talked to you and two other guests, one who was already on and one who's going to be on at the end of the month, who had these abilities. And, the thing that I see that you all have in common is that you landed up getting sick. And all of a sudden these things were revealed to you. And I don't know about you as far as this goes, but I know the other two people, they were kind of like pushing them away, being like, no, I don't necessarily want this. It's okay.
Oh, dude, I totally didn't want it.
Okay, so that's 3.
But here is the thing. I don't want people to be mistaken. You don't have to suffer in order to get these abilities. I went through what I went through. I mean, it would be a disservice to humanity if I went through, you have no idea. It's just, I had to go, I had the perfect house with, I had a 5,500 square foot house with an indoor pool, and I had a husband that loved me. He probably doesn't think he loves me anymore, but he does. And I love him too. And, the dog, the property with the stream in the backyard and a walking trail. We were living the life. We were going to parties, going on vacation, everything that was fun and awesome, and we liked each other and we loved each other, but I just knew I wasn't happy. I checked every box in the land below the line, right? In the land below the line, I filled in every one of the shoulds, and it could only have happened that way, Joyce, because I wouldn't be able to talk to you right now. Hopefully you guys can, it's so funny. The ego too. So after you work with tens of thousands of people and you see what happens, I just got a text from someone who I've been working with for 6 years, and she went from, probably the worst life you could describe. You would think it would be hopeless for someone like her to actually become a teacher and then help kids who she actually manifested a job which is teaching all of the outcasts in a school board, which is basically
I would have been one of her students.
Right. And she
would have been me.
Yeah. So she was horrifically abused as a child. And, here we were texting back and forth, and I love her like a sister, And I knew it was possible for someone, I mean, if you can bridge that and thrive, then you can bridge anything.
Right.
If you can do that, you can do anything. But I mean, she's just one among tens of thousands. I mean, she just happened to text me today. You know, and also I think that people get jaded too. They start listening to someone like me who sounds so passionate and so like sure of herself, and they think like, oh, you know, she's just trying to sell programs and courses and stuff. I really am not. It's like when you start listening to your instincts, if you're someone that's on the fast track and you want to wake up and integrate those superpowers, I mean, I have to financially support my company in order to keep everyone staffed. But I'll tell you, it is so far from being about the money. It's more about financing journeys around the world so that I can speak to as many people as I possibly can to stop this world from having everything that happens happen. You know, so when we go again, we go back to that original question, which seems to be a very formative question. Why are we being called to our purpose? Because it's not just about it's not just about the little me. Like, oh, I just want to be able to have a car and a house who cares about that? Oh my God, anyone can do that. You might say, but Jennifer, I don't even know how I'm going to pay my bills right now.
Right.
And even by integrating just a few of your superpowers, you watch how that shifts so quickly, like that whole quantum leap that happened to me on the plane. You have to have the courage to go into the land of not knowing, though, because you see,
I do.
do. to the degree that things aren't flowing is the degree to it. Like, if you want to know how much you're integrated with your superpowers and you're living with them, that's the degree to which everything is flowing. Relationships, money, all that kind of stuff, like everything just working and it's expanding. So if it's like the barometer of how far integrated with them you are is exactly the results. So that's all you get. Knowing about them doesn't make a fig of difference, but activating them and getting the practice of using them and then realizing that you could actually permanently live above the shoulds, musts, and have tos, and you'll be able to see from 30,000 feet everything that's going on and have the wisdom to know exactly what to do about it. That's a whole different way of living. And we can all transcend it. And I swear to God, I will not stop until, those that are coming forward, like that client I just talked about, and she was born to teach the kids that are just like that young one that I was talking about this morning, the 22-year-old who has been shunned and sent to psychiatrists and all this kind of stuff. If this woman was her teacher, she would have been validated and told that there's nothing wrong with her, and she would have somewhere to go to know that she's not the crazy one, right? And so, that's just one person affecting thousands of kids, so how do we change a planet? In a fractal universe, it really is one life at a time, and it's causing one person to be able to. We talked about having this land below that's this man-made land of shoulds, musts, and have-tos with strategies. You need a head. Your head needs to be used by those strategies. When you live...
I'm sick of that. I'm real sick of that.
Sure. And when you live above the density, when you actually start to integrate with your innate abilities, your default becomes... You just don't care. You're living at a frequency. Now get this, Joyce, okay? So actually everyone should breathe right now because what I'm about to say is like a really big concept. Okay? So just like you really want to be in your body to hear this, like with your cells. We don't hear with our head because your cells here, you have 75 trillion cells and you have one little left brain. We don't want to be in the little left brain. We want to be in all of your cells hearing this. Imagine that when you live above the clouds, when you live above the line, when you step out of the density of what your parents said, what your school said, what the church said, what the synagogue said, what the whatever said. And when you actually transcend the need to appease everyone else and make sure everyone else is okay with what you're doing, but then you develop the skills to be able to bridge any conversation so it's also not a rebellious thing. Like, screw you, nobody can hold me back. I'm a freedom seeker. That's just swinging the pendulum the other way.
Right.
I'm talking about having so much confidence with your abilities to move energy on this planet and to change things and to embody yourself. Now just think about what I said earlier. That, my friends, is creator consciousness. That is a human being living as creator consciousness through a human body. Now, from this perspective, the paradox is you start to realize that the only being that would be powerful enough to even create the paradigm called I'm not creator consciousness. Like, can you imagine the kind of power, the kind of fortitude it would take to actually create an entire paradigm below the clouds called you are not what you actually are, but we're going to create a whole reality around it so you can live that illusion. I mean, you'd have to be one stinking powerful creator being to actually create the world so you could actually forget who you really are.
Wow. I don't want to forget who I really am.
No, we don't want to forget who we really are. And, a lot of times the next question is, why would we do that?
Well, that's kind of what I was thinking. It's kind of like, well, that thought's never crossed my mind.
Like, yeah, why would I do that? So now we know why so many people are feeling the call to purpose. Because 7.5 billion people that came before you, one of them was you, actually asked for people to come forward that think outside of the box and are willing to live beyond the clouds. That's the answer to the question. Then, like you said, the question is like, why would someone forget that they could live there? Why would you forget all your superpowers? Why would you atrophy all of that?
Well, because it's embedded into us from the time that we're very young.
But even over history, like what happened, right?
Even there, because you look back at it and it's, it was called evil. It was satanic. I mean, even women
and you were killed.
Yeah, right. Women who used women they used the herbalists using herbs. They were called witches.
There you go, girlfriend.
It was bad. I mean, even at one point I had a bunch of crystals, and when I got involved with the church, it was like, oh, that's New Age, that's bad. Yeah. And I'm just like, excuse me. And as time went on, I was going, wait a minute. The Father, the Creator, gave Aaron a breastplate that was inlaid with crystals. All kinds of crystals. There's crystals all throughout the Bible.
Sure.
And you're telling me that this is evil? This is wrong?
It's paradoxical a little bit, isn't it?
I'm sorry?
It's kind of paradoxical, isn't it?
It's controlling.
It is.
It's controlling. It's like, I feel like when I look back at things now, when I see how things are now, and I look back at my life and the way that I was and the things that I felt, I'm just like, I was stifled. Like everything about me was stifled. It was like a jack in the box. You're stuffing it in the box. No, you go down in there. You stay there. You don't come out.
Yep. Yeah, you should be. I want you to be the way that makes me feel comfortable.
Right. Or the way that I want you to be.
Right.
I want you to be.
Right. So that order is maintained. See, order is maintained, but then everybody survives. But there's a cosmic order.
But they don't survive.
Well, they barely survive, right? And there's a cosmic order to things that actually has everyone live a non-linear life where the entire universe is orchestrating it as long as we show up in the present moment and do what presents. It's one of our superpowers, is to be able to know what's presenting in the moment and actually listen to that, which supersedes the shoulds, musts, and have-tos. So that's how you get non-linear results, but you have to develop a level of confidence with that so that you lose your doubts, right? So, I mean, that's why I'm so right? So that's why I'm so passionate about what I teach, because if everyone would do that, really, we would not need to fight with anyone, because we would realize that nobody was stopping us. There's always a way. We would know the universe is basically considering every other human being and everything that is presented to you. So in other words, what is in the highest for you is in the highest for all. Even if it shakes their tree, even if it stings a little bit sometimes. But when we rearrange a planet back to its natural order as opposed to its man-made order below the clouds, it's good. People don't like change. Well, egos don't like change because egos will...
I like change. Change is, to me, I know a lot of people don't like change. Mm-hmm. I embrace change because I feel that I have an opportunity to learn something, to experience something more than the same old that I've been living in. I don't want to live in the same old. I want something new. I want change. I want things to change. I want things to be different. I don't want them to stay the same. And I think other people actually feel the same way too.
Well, let's be careful because, so can I tell you about a little experiment that went on? And I actually learned this in my social psychology class. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. So in my social psychology class, what I learned, I think it was even Social Psych 101. I think it was like my first class. They even brought in a hypnotist, which was really interesting because the power of suggestion and stuff was very cool to watch. But there were two studies I remember. One of the studies was about an elevator, right? And how if you have someone put in the elevator already who's facing the wrong way, like the door, acting as if the door is on the other side when you get out, that the chances are that, some relatively high percent that the second person that gets in will face that way too.
Yeah, I can see that.
Then what they did is they put two people facing the wrong way. Okay? There's almost 100% chance that the third person getting in the elevator is gonna, so just think of the implications of that. All it took was two people facing the wrong way, and the other person will face the wrong way.
And that's because a lot of us are followers. We're just looking, and not only that, but we don't trust ourselves. We don't trust that.
Now we're back to our innate abilities. You see, I even say, what if we went beyond trust, Joyce? What if we just knew? I mean, it's hard to grasp, but again, if we just breathed, it's like, I'm going to trust. There's a huge difference between saying, I'm going to trust that this doctor is going to do a great job on my knee operation, and saying, I know this doctor is the right doctor for me because my knee is going to be better than new. But it's not something I say because that would be intention. I mean, you actually really do know it in yourselves. What if you walked around with that degree of knowing so you don't even have to trust anything ever again? That's what I'm saying. Right?
Well, and I mean, we get those feelings, like what you're talking about, the superpowers, that we have. We can feel, and, maybe it's that energy that you're talking about. But I know I've been in situations to where, I know I'm supposed to do this. I don't know why I'm supposed to do this, but I'm gonna trust what I feel, and I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna do it.
Right. And
it's like,
yeah, go ahead.
It's like after my first husband died back in 2004. Mm-hmm. And we had, Social Security coming from him being disabled it was back pay. So long story short, I was told to go to Kauai, and I argued about going to Kauai because I didn't want to go. Landed up the first time I had ever traveled by myself without a male companion with 3 children with me to some place I had never been or even wanted to go. But I went because I was told to go. Uh-huh. But if I had not gone, I would have not have met my current husband that I have right now.
Right.
So it's just really amazing. So that was scary for me. That was real scary for me. I stepped out and went, fine, if this is what I'm supposed to do, then I'll go ahead and I'll do it. I don't know why I'm doing this, but if this is what I'm supposed to do, then fine. And again, it was a scary thing to do that. And I think a lot of us, that uncertainty
Yes.
of when we feel that we should do something, and then we start to question ourselves.
Well,
not knowing, or we let the fear interfere with what we really think we're supposed to be doing.
Well, let's do another delineation then, Joyce, because there's an important distinction that you're talking about. So imagine a human being's natural state is to live in that kind of flow. You wouldn't even have fear. You just know when you go. Do you see what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, I didn't resist what was happening on the plane. I just went with it. I went with the whole thing. And it was hilarious what happened. Right? Kind of like,
it's awesome.
Yeah, it is awesome. And every day is like that for me. It is my natural state. Now when stuff happens that's against the flow, I'm shocked. I'm like, wow, what was I doing? Like, where did I have my head? Today. So, this isn't about presence. It really is about activating codes that actually are like keys in a lock in your multidimensional, and the bridge to the multidimensional abilities is that latent junk DNA that accesses the other, what we would call gifts. But you don't just have one gift, you could have all 24, including the ability to just know. Forget about trusting. So let's talk about the fear for a second. Okay. So you remember the line that we talked about before? We said that everything below that line is man-made. It's going to be strategy-based, right?
Right.
Okay. So just play Are you up to play our game today, Joyce?
Contestant number one.
Contestant number one. Okay. So let's pretend there was a being that had a bunch of superpowers. Let's even, the pre-Inca people used to do all their crops this way. They lived totally by instincts. Even the Druids didn't even need to talk because they communed with each other the same way they communed with nature, which was without words, because they just knew what was going on with each other. Get what I'm saying?
Oh, sure. My husband and I kind of have that connection.
So now, that's a totally different world than the should, must, have to, everyone's out to get each other, limited resources, I need to get my piece of the pie world, right? Because that world just flows, doesn't it?
Right.
Okay, so imagine let's imagine this is possible. You start off as this amazing being that's totally filled with possibility, knows that their imagination is actually just an alternate reality, knows that they can bring anything into this reality, has a very alchemical experience of life, and is just, having a blast with creating upon creation and what's next, and they flow with people, and they can see what's going on with people. All they have to do is say a few words if someone's stuck. People, and the energy of the other person moves. It's almost like their whole being is like an alchemical factory of it's like bringing heaven with them wherever they go. Okay? So now, that's how they are. But all of a sudden, they're told, alright, this is what you gotta do, okay? This is what you gotta do. I don't want you to live in La La Land anymore. We want you to come down to earth. I want you to forget all that hooey that you're living up there. And I want you to come below the line. And what we're going to do is, what you got to do is follow the shoulds, musts, strategies. There's not enough down here. It's like hard, and you have to fight each other for your piece of the pie. And there's a whole bunch of ingredients that will go into you being successful. And only success will equal happiness. So, there's somewhere to get, and you're going to constantly be going after goals. And you won't be happy until. There's a whole bunch of untils.
Right.
And you're like, okay. And then you think, well, I can't live from my cellular instincts anymore. So I have to invent a new aspect of me that can deal with limitedness and strategies and not enough, because I know that's all BS. That's not true. But in order to dance in the world where there isn't enough, and where there's not enough nice people, there's not enough money, you have to fight for where you're surviving, which I wasn't, but now I guess I'm going to play this game. You actually have to invent a part of your personality, like a new part of your personality, to be able to play the I'm not enough, maybe I'm not worthy, this is really hard game. And some people call that your ego, some people call it your alternate self, some people call it it doesn't even matter what we call it. But that's when we started living from that being as though it was real. Now, in order to live in the not enough world, you have to be afraid all the time. So your ego is afraid all the time. And the cool thing is the mechanism the ego created, which is so brilliant. I think this is like genius. The mechanism the ego created called fear, which we projected that if you're afraid, you shouldn't do that thing. That's what we said. Total BS again. If you're afraid, you're afraid. It's not that you shouldn't do that thing. And plus, you're saying you're afraid. But you're not afraid. Your ego's afraid. Because if you are actually going to do something inspiring from your instincts, you're now going to step above the line, and now you're going to activate your cosmic self, and the entity called your ego might die if you realize who you really are. And every thought form, including an ego, doesn't want to die. So what the ego is ultimately afraid of is dying, and that's the feeling we have when we go and do something that we say, I was really scared. If one thing we could do out of today, which, it's such a simple tool, it's really a drop in the bucket of what's possible. But if one thing we would do is stop saying, I'm afraid. No, you're not afraid. Your ego is afraid of dying if you do that possibility. If your ego is afraid, you should be really excited about whatever that possibility is. Because if you do that possibility, you're going to see more of who you are. That's why your ego's afraid.
Right.
Do you get what I'm saying? So it's a paradox.
Oh, yeah, it makes total sense.
Right? And so by the way, just to tell, give the punchline of that story, when you go from 3 to 8 years old, that's exactly the story. The whole story I just told is exactly what happens when you go from 2 years old to 9 years old.
Yeah, I can totally see that. Well, it's 7:06 right now, so we're gonna take a short music break and we'll be right back. And Jennifer, when we come back, can we talk more about, actually about the multi-dimensional DNA? I'm really curious about that.
Absolutely. Yummy. Yay. Woohoo.
Okay. We're going to take a short music break, and please stick around and join us. I'm here with Jennifer Hough, and we'll be right back after this break. Welcome back. You're listening to It's Your Life, Live It to the Fullest. I'm your host, Joyce Wheeler. It is Friday, July 15th, 2016. You're listening to Haggy Shack Radio and Will Spirit Radio. Please remember that we're listener sponsored, so click that donate button and show us some love. And I am back now with my guest, Jennifer Hough. Jennifer, are you back with us?
I sure am.
Before we go on, I'd like for you to give your contact information. If people want to contact you, where can they go to?
If people want to contact if they want to get through to me directly, they would go through Sonia, and that would be the email would be lightworker@thewideawakening.com. If they want to find out more about what we do, it's thewideawakening.com. And so that's where they go. I actually recommend, Joyce, just thinking, we just did two webinars that are free to everybody. One of them was about the DNA of receiving, and the other was about transcending self-sabotaging patterns. And the best, you can actually find those at thewideawakening.com / we did a special page for your listeners called / Wolf Spirit.
Oh,
yeah.
How cool is that?
Yeah, so if they page down a little bit, they'll actually see the two webinars that we did. I think they just give their name and their email address, and then the page will open up and away they go.
That is so awesome.
Yeah.
our listeners really enjoy Facebook, so you want to give your Facebook contact?
Oh, cool. I love Facebook too. Yeah, sure. My Facebook is, thewideawakening.com / let's see, Wide Awakening. Wide Awakening.
So if they wanted to search for you, what would they search for?
You could do Wide Awakening. So you could search that, or you could search Jennifer Hough, obviously, for sure.
Could you spell your last name for listeners, please?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I always forget. Okay, if you think of my last name like rough and tough, right? You spell it O-U-G-H. So my last name is H-O-U-G-H.
And where did you say, I'm looking on your website right now, where did you say that page was just for our listeners?
It's / so you go thewideawakening.com / wolf spirit.
Okay, so it doesn't actually come up on your sites.
No, it's not on our site. It's actually on a page by itself.
Okay, cool. Gotcha.
Okay?
Understand.
So,
that is still totally cool.
Yeah, it is.
So yeah, and I would totally recommend checking out Jennifer's webinars. I mean, she's amazing to listen to. And, go to her website, check out her programs, what she has to offer. And, contact her and let's everybody unlock that DNA so that we can live the life we were created to live and we can live on earth the way that we were meant to live on earth. Let's all live in peace and harmony. Sounds good to me. So let's talk about this DNA.
Well, let's see where to begin. So probably I should start with my crazy, stupid journey. So, I didn't know biology from Adam. I didn't, when I first got into nutrition, it was almost like, I was so ignorant to what was actually happening in my body, even though I was reading this book and doing everything it said in the book, and it helped me so much, this book, at the time. And I'm thinking that how invincible you get when you're 28. You kind of think like, oh, I read one book, now I know everything. And,
right.
But I felt so much better that people started coming to me as a nutritionist. So I had to start studying because people were coming to me with things I never heard of, like, ulcerative colitis and, multiple sclerosis, and I had no idea. So my schooling didn't start with going to school. My schooling started with going to the School of Life and researching the tree shakers and the people who thought outside of the box and really understanding why all those things happened. Later I went to school, but it started with that. So my foray into biology was very practical. It's like I really wanted to know how the human body worked. And then I had practical applications. So it wasn't like an intellectual someone teaching me. It's like I had a reason to learn this and I was trying to help someone. So what happened was that I started to be able to really understand human biology. And then, like many of your listeners, maybe some of you know about Bruce Lipton. So this is like 15 years ago. I had met him and I had talked to him and he was such a lovely man. Later on in life, I was on an advisory board with him. And it's just like, it was my first understanding from someone who was a geneticist that in fact, your biology is directly impacted by how you look at life. That in fact, what plays out in your body has much more to do with how you think and how you perceive life and how you perceive yourself than anything related to, like, what's in your DNA only gets triggered by the biochemicals that are a result of the way you perceive life. So the perception of life matters way more than what's in your DNA. So now I'm like, okay, that opened a huge doorway. And that was the beginning of me having there's a couple of catalysts. One was seeing someone with a incredible brain tumor scare the life out of me because she was having terrible migraines and I was still having one a month instead of, like I said, 8 a month. And I thought, maybe I have a brain tumor. So I just looked up in the sky and I said, universe, or whatever is out there, you better show me how I transcend this and what the heck the issue is. And that night I saw that was the beginning of the Awakened Dreams about the fact that we don't just have double-stranded DNA. I started to see that we had, it doesn't look like the twisted ladder. That is three-dimensional DNA. We can see that under a microscope. But we also have what science calls junk DNA that actually builds bridges. So if you can kind of think, Joyce, what does double-stranded DNA give us? Like, well, what is it governing? What does it govern? What's its job?
I don't know, I'm not a science person. I'm a writer, so I'm more about words.
Sure.
But, just from what I think I know about it, it basically governs our makeup. Our DNA determines what we look like, certain, as far as certain aspects of our bodies go.
Yep.
What we, I don't believe disease is inherited like we're told. It's like, oh, well, it's in your DNA. I don't believe that, so I'm not going to say that.
No,
but this is what we're told.
Absolutely. What's inherited is actually the ways of thinking and the way of perceiving life that give you the chemicals that actually activate that part of the DNA. You're absolutely right on.
Yay for me. What do I win?
Yeah, well, since you are our first contestant of the D, the DNA actually is exactly the two-stranded DNA, eye color, height, everything you just said. It's all about the three-dimensional characteristics, right? So just with sheer logic, you don't know anything really about biology. I mean, you're not a biologist, like you said, you're a writer. If it's very obvious to you that two-stranded three-dimensional DNA gives you all the three-dimensional characteristics, then where do the codes for all of those special abilities where you just know stuff, or where you can see energy, or where you can talk to your dog through your pineal gland, or where, if those are all multidimensional abilities, then where are the codes for that DNA?
I don't know.
Well, if three-dimensional codes for three-dimensional characteristics, then multidimensional codes are likely for multidimensional characteristics, right?
Ah.
Like, how can you have a three-dimensional code for something that doesn't even exist in 3D? You with me?
Yeah.
So what I started to see in the hologram of human beings' beingness was I could see not only all the way back in their history and every decision that they'd made that had caused the biochemistry and the future trajectories that were about to happen in their life, that some of them didn't look very good, which is why I was working with them in the present moment to change the way they perceived life. And I thought what I was doing is preventing disease, but as it turns out, it would change the whole future trajectory of their life. But what I would see is I didn't realize at the time that all these crazy shapes and tones and, beautiful sacred geometries and everything, because I had no reference point for them, all these things were actually activating the abilities of these people, the abilities that were associated with the piece of the puzzle of heaven and earth that they are. And I was like, these codes contained the information that when applied to the human body and when delivered to the human body, the human three-dimensional biology would build a bridge to those codes, and the three-dimensional biology would be permanently altered to be able to access multi-dimensions while being in 3D. So now you're permanently being rewired to be able to live in a more fluid way. That's exactly what those codes do. What they do is the pineal gland, which is why you'll see all the sacred, all the ancient wisdoms, even if you look in ancient Egypt, you'll see the Eye of Ra.
Right.
The Eye of Ra is exactly in the shape of the pituitary, of the pineal gland. It's the exact same shape.
Right.
When they draw it, it's the same. So the pineal gland is a doorway to the multidimensional aspects. Now, just because it's a doorway doesn't mean you're going to activate all your DNA codes. That's just not what happens. But what it does is opens a doorway so that you can be upgraded. Over time, humanity is going to be upgraded because the demand of human beings for no longer to be lied to by media, to find peace and understanding with each other, is going to demand that we shift and we actually can know the truth about who each other is rather than.
And I think that's happening right now.
It is absolutely happening. Well, that's why I love what I do, because for those who, I just have to share. Can I share one more study?
Yeah, but you know what? Something's been bothering me.
What's that? Go ahead.
There's some comments in the chat room that I just want to point out to you.
Sure.
Well, it's not really bothering me, but I was just, some things I found that were interesting. As one of the listeners said, my dad used to say, we worry the right amount of time, just about the wrong things. And then somebody else said, me too poor to pay attention.
Me too poor to pay attention?
Yeah.
Huh. That's interesting because what's so, even in this conversation, Joyce, the thing is that by embodying those DNA codes myself, everyone is receiving those codes just from our conversation. So those codes are being activated within people at a basic level, even through our conversation, because I emanate those codes. You also emanate some of those codes. So our conversation is exponentially emanating the codes that people are receiving. And what happens is a lot of people just sort of give up, right? What they're looking at is they think that it's a very linear journey and I can't skip the line and I just survive and I just, all that kind of stuff. But the thing is, one thing that I will say is this. We all know how our parents were. We all knew how our teachers were. We know who even the people that hurt us the worst. We know that they were probably hurt the worst too before us. If you're willing to be someone that doesn't want to hold on to the new agey paradigm or even the therapy-based paradigm, or even the paradigm that woman or man was tapping into, that thriving is unreachable. There's too far to go. Your ego would love it if you stayed with that. That is a below the line, below the clouds paradigm. And the truth is, above the clouds, you can make quantum leaps that just snap you out of stuff that you thought would never change. It doesn't mean that there isn't a journey. It doesn't mean that there aren't things to learn. But in these times of great change where there are people that are living and really struggling, like really, really, really struggling.
It was interesting because just now I was kind of in the chat room when I had mentioned to you that somebody had said me too poor to pay attention. Colleen had replied and she was like, it's just a joke. And I had said, I know, but the universe doesn't know the difference. And then she said, the universe doesn't have a sense of humor.
Well, it is funny. It is funny. But there are people that really, it's like they really feel that way. It's
right, but I've been told that. I've been told that we should watch what we say because the universe doesn't know the difference between what a joke is and what isn't.
Well, who is the beautiful person it's kind of funny. I'm too poor to pay attention. So I want to speak to that because I actually want to challenge what you just said, because the playful way that person was saying that is not like what she said was not an issue at all for the universe. The universe knows she's playing. The universe doesn't listen to what you say, Joyce. It listens to remember how I told you before, how we were sharing before, that the universe doesn't give a crap about your intention. It actually, what it cares about is the spirit with which you emanate the truth of who you are. It cares about how much love you emanate. It cares about the possibility you live in. And if the words you're cracking a joke, like that beautiful person is cracking a joke, the spirit with which they're saying it is sort of like, it breaks energy with things getting too serious. I crack jokes all the time. Right. And that's actually, that's the energy of what she said. It's not a like dense, horrible. So if you look at the energy, and forgive me for using the word Trump, but the energy trumps, you know, I try to avoid it at all costs. The energy,
can't imagine why.
Yeah, the energy of what she's saying actually trumps, the words. Cause that's not
gotcha.
that is not the energy behind what she was saying.
I always felt that way too. You know, like what you're saying, it makes more sense to me. But I've heard so many speakers say, excuse me, watch what you're saying because the universe doesn't know the difference between a joke and when you're not joking.
Can I share something else?
But like what you said, I always thought it was the energy. Yes, please do.
But didn't we say it's time to know what we know? And I just said something that you already knew, but someone else said it who was a teacher. It's like going into the elevator, right? And isn't it great that I got to validate something that in your heart you already knew, right? Because of course your energy about what you say trump. So for instance, someone said, oh, don't use the word God. It has so many connotations to it. I said, are you kidding me? Someone like me using the word God is the best person to use the word God ever. Because when I use the word God, I sure as heck don't mean the guy on a throne somewhere judging us all. I mean an infinite, loving, unconditionally wide open, let's say, aspect of consciousness that is like your biggest fan. You know, like that's what I mean. So that's the energy I'm emanating when I say the word God. I'm going to use God all the time, right? So it's like, yeah, but it's associated with church. I say, not for me, it ain't. So, and it still is because I've met lots of ministers who are breaking the rules and like going way outside of the lines. I mean, I just met an Anglican minister, a woman the other day. It was just like amazing. So even the polarity that we have about church or about whatever, that's got to stop too. Because there are some amazing rule breakers and tree shakers from within those institutions because the whole world is shifting, and that includes, one of my last clients, we do a year-long program, Joyce, called Flight School. And there was a vice president of a bank in flight school talking about getting out of their own way, cosmic energies, innate abilities, and his whole life is sent on a new trajectory because he learned about the so like, hate to tell you, it's like we have to include everybody. We have to include everything. We have to infuse those words with new energy instead of, people say don't use the word can't. Well, I hate to tell you, if something's not in my highest, then I can't do it. So I'm using the word can't.
Well, that's even like when we talk about our finances. I tell my husband, don't say we can't afford it. Don't say we have the money. Say it's not in the budget.
It's not in the budget, but at the same time, you could say that, we could do it, just not right now.
Well, and I like that a whole lot better, but as I told you from our first conversation, I'm working on him with his vocabulary, so.
But again, remember about the vocabulary. That can drive someone nuts. It's the energy with which you say it. It's not the words.
But see, that's a problem too. There's negative energy there.
Well,
when
so
he's
here's
saying it, it's negative energy. I could feel it.
So, Sweetie Pie, can I assist you further? And everybody?
Please.
Okay.
Please do.
Okay. What do you think is the energy of all of consciousness of the entire universe? What do you, is it? Like, is it yummy? Is it expansive? Like, describe it. Like, what does it feel like?
Tense.
The energy of the entire universe?
Yeah, I feel tension at the same time. I would, it's mixed. It's tense, it's
then
love.
we're talking about two different things. What does it feel like to be in the flow with the entirety of creation?
Oh, okay. Freedom. Total freedom. Peace, love, happiness. Yeah.
Yeah, like expansion, like possibility, right? Like totally.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
totally.
cool. Okay. If I said to you, so here's the deal. Is the energy of being in the flow with the entire what do you think is more powerful? Being in the flow with all of that energy or actually pinching off that energy? What do you think what has more creative juju?
Okay, are you talking like in regards to my husband and what I was saying?
Anything. Nope. I'm just talking in general. What has more creative force in the universe? When you're in the flow with that expansive, yummy, delicious energy, or when you're actually pinching it off? What do you think can create more?
When I'm in the flow with that energy.
So how much energy when you're like being negative or being perceptively negative, by the way, when you're just being a little bit overcautious and just kind of confining yourself, it doesn't have a lot of creative energy, does it?
No.
Okay, cool. Okay, let's give it a number. Let's say would it make sense to you if we were even conservative and we said it had 1,000 times more energy to be in flow with the entire universe? Of course, it has infinity times the energy, but we're just going to say 1,000 times, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. How much does it actually matter that someone is negative then if one person is in the flow? Can that other person really stop them at all, ever?
Wow. That's true. That's
so
true.
It's actually a waste of time to give power to someone pinching off. Actually, it's a total waste of time because you're actually giving energy and you're taking yourself out of your cosmic flow, which is the very thing that keeps you going anyways.
But that's so hard not to do sometimes.
Because you're giving your power away to...
I knew you were going to say that. So knew you were going to say that.
But you get it, right? Like, it's pretty vivid.
Yeah, I get it.
It's like they can do whatever they want. They have nothing to do with your vortex, dude. You're a vortex. You're your own vortex. And the cool thing is, you'll trump them every time anyway. So it really doesn't matter what they think. Your energy will supersede theirs all day long.
All right, so let's get back to the DNA thing. It's already 7:36. Do you realize that?
How did that happen?
I know. We have less than a half hour. So let's talk more about the multi-dimensional DNA that you say that it holds the key to our codes.
So, okay. So we have within us little aspects of our brain and of our cells. We have 75 trillion cells.
That's
of those
cells.
That's 10,000 times the number of people on the planet is the number of individual cells you have in your body. That's a lot.
Yeah, so sure is.
Those individual cells, think of how 7.5 billion people get along on the planet. Or don't. Now think of 10,000 times that same number of individual cells getting along in perfect harmony. Which do you think is living above the line? Your cells
or
human beings? Right, of course. Because they are communing and doing things for you right now as we speak that you have no idea how to tell them to do, and they're doing like millions of things per second that if they didn't do any 5 of them, you'd be dead.
Right.
So your cells are 100% for you. They are your best friends. So now, those cells were designed originally to be able to bridge through to the multi-dimensions, which is why all those ancient cultures really revered the pineal gland. Because the pineal gland was the access to the other dimensions. In those other dimensions are the DNA codes that instruct, that can upgrade the human body to be able to build a bridge so that our default way of being, in other words, our human biology in 3D can upgrade to be consistently in communion with all of the other dimensions, so that we would have the abilities that Jesus, as you said at the beginning, was talking about from the get-go, saying you can do all this and more. Well, what he was talking about is your innate abilities. You can do the healings and all those things that he talked about, of course. The thing is, people, what we have to stop doing in order to keep those portals open is stop polarizing each other. When people see what's possible and what I have been able to do, when people start to experience that, they start to put me on a pedestal, which is exactly what I don't want, because I'm not here to heal them. I'm here to teach them how to do it themselves and to integrate what I was shown in those waking dreams is how do we actually upgrade everybody so everyone can have all of the innate abilities that would serve them in the highest in their life, so they can get on with living in their flow and in their abundance and be the example and emanate those codes themselves, so that we exponentially activate the rest of the world by all of us upgrading. This is
so if you could give everybody one tip as to what they could do to activate the DNA, what would it be?
Well, we could, you mean one step of it, right?
Yeah.
One thing, one step of it. So so just to give you a perspective on what I'm about to say, because we really should put it in perspective. There's several things that are parts of truly doing this, not in a cowboy sort of way, but in a way that causes permanent cellular shift, and you just change your default. So the stages are, first of all, what we say is the most amazing stage is to be seen the same way that the entire universe saw you before you got here. So in other words, if you're a piece of the puzzle of heaven on earth and 7.5 billion people dreamed you into being in a time of great awakening when all of humanity is going to sleep, you must be pretty magical and pretty important, because the universe dreamed you into being, or you wouldn't be here. Your parent is not your parent. Your parent is that which dreamed you into being. They were just the vessels through which you came. So now, what happens? The first step is to see yourself as that. That's the first thing that activates you living above the line. Because if you can experience that firsthand, now you're onto something. Okay? So, we do a program called Get It Out of Your Way. The whole thing is about that, and then integrating with some of the innate abilities. It's like activating the truth of who you are so you can never go back. Right? And then transmuting it. So that's the first step, which we could do one of the activations from.
Okay.
Yeah, so ask me though.
I was just curious because, again, listening to all the speakers I've listened to, they all talk about we're spiritual beings having a human experience. I believe that we chose to be here during this time.
Hello.
Okay. I'm just wanting to make sure, because you had talked about, that we were basically created by our parents and, because that's what they wanted. So, but I'll tell you, I'm sure they didn't want what they got when they had me.
Yeah, no. I'm not saying that. No, that's the exact opposite of what I'm saying. I'm saying that your parents did not have very much to do with it, aside from the fact
I misunderstood.
The entire universe dreamed you into being. Your parents are not your parents. The universe is your parent. You were dreamed.
How did I hear that? How did I hear that the opposite?
I have no idea, but you have skill sets and characteristics and geniuses from past lifetimes that met exactly with the criterion of the kind of bridge building that needs to happen on a planet that actually had people forgetting the truth of who they were. And you were dreamed into being, if you're listening to this podcast right now, for sure, magnetically you came to this podcast because you were dreamed into being to build bridges for others, remembering at some point in your life that you are not what everyone else said you were as a human. And at some point you're going to have to believe God, the universe, creation, over all those other people. Because either creation is right, that you are a magnificent being and that's why you're here, or fallible human beings who've forgotten who they are right. And if you want to keep believing them, that's fine. But,
you know what's funny? Funny? Is that you're talking about that, and it's like, I spent my whole entire life proving to people that I was not what they thought I was.
Uh-huh.
But not pleasing them. Not pleasing them. Not being like, oh, I'm going to be what you want me to be. I've never been one to conform to anybody. But I've always been like, kind of like, I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you. You know, I have a purpose. I'm more than what you think I am.
Well, and the cool thing is, by doing that, is you understand that you have the capacity to activate that everyone isn't who you think they are. They aren't even who they think they are. We all are much more. And so, you know, that's less than 5% of the population. When, you know, after Hitler, had the war, there were a bunch of scientific experiments that went on, and one of the experiments was, they wanted to figure out why someone would follow, a charismatic leader, like why people would do that, because if they could solve that or fix it, somehow that would never happen again. And so they did this experiment whereby a guy in a lab coat who wasn't even a doctor, took part in an experiment where, you know, an actor then was on the other side of an electrical shock, and the person administering the shock was actually the subject of the experiment, which was to see how much of a shock a regular human being would administer if someone in a lab coat told them to keep amping up the shock level. Now, of course, the actor wasn't really being shocked, but they were acting like it was being amped up.
Right.
And it didn't matter how much the actor screamed. For 95% of people, because the doctor told them to amp up the shock, actually it was 93%. 93% of people, do you realize that for 93% of people, they would amp up the shock to a factor that would actually kill a human being?
Wow.
So we got to understand that most of the rest of the planet, and maybe even you might even admit to yourself that's like, I probably would have been one of those people. But in order to change a planet, you'd have to be doing what we talked about earlier, which is knowing your heart and knowing what's right to you and not following the crowd. All of that stuff, which is what you were just talking about. And now we're talking about innate abilities. Well, how do you know what you know? How do you get so instinctual that you couldn't possibly be told what to think by someone else? You'd have to embody your innate abilities so powerfully. So all of these codes that lie in your multidimensional realms actually cause you to have the wisdom of that all-seeing, all-knowing. It didn't matter what naysayers said around Jesus. Jesus just knew what he knew.
Right.
He knew what was possible. He just knew what he knew. He just kept saying his truth as far as he knew it. What if we were all that way? What if we all, and he did it all with compassion, without having
love.
He didn't do it by defending himself. He didn't do it by trying to fix anyone. He didn't do it by telling people they were broken. He didn't do it by telling people they were doing it wrong. He just did it with compassion and love. And what if we could all embody that way? What if we could?
The world will be a much better place.
Wouldn't it?
Yes, it would.
So, let's do a little activation because you asked me to do like a little piece. Now I want you guys to know what activations are. It's like me deliberately emanating out of my cells, in other words, out of my, what we call telomeres. The telomeres in my chromosomes. I'm emanating the codes and frequencies through my voice and through my beingness and through being with you, that actually activate a deeper truth so that doorways open for the codes to start to come in. This is not activating the specific codes because each of the codes has a specific frequency too. And how those are activated is not only by opening the portal, but then by doing those innate abilities that most people think are like, oh my God, those are gifts. I can't do that. But what you find out within like a half an hour is that you actually can do something that you thought was only for the special people. Okay?
So then once you find out that you're able to do this, you have to continue to work that ability, to keep it up to par, to bring it to greater heights?
That is such a great question. I don't think anyone's ever asked me that. You actually, once you open the portal and then you see you can do it, here's what happens, Joyce. That you are already born into a certain trajectory. It's not like a thin little pathway where that's your purpose, like as in fate. It's not like that. It's like a wide range of potentials that would be in your highest on the planet right now that would both make your heart sing and make humanity's heart sing. It would be a win-win-win for consciousness, humanity, and you. To go on any one of those, because we have, the free will to choose our direction, any one of those things, because of your skill sets and the trajectory you've already been on, would be amazing. The skill sets that you'll use are the ones that are going to get the most attention. And it's not going to be all 24, because you don't need all 24. You only need usually like 8 or 9 of them that you're going to use all the time, because it's part of the trajectory that you came to go forward on in life. And the other ones, you could access them if you wanted to, but really, you don't need to, because the thrill and the joy and the adventure that you're going on is so amazing. You're just super, like the 8 or 9 just like fill your heart. It's just so amazing. But the cool thing in finding out about your innate abilities is you realize you could do all 24, right? So the answer to your question is, your life is going to call you to certain ones. And you're going to get tons of practice. You won't be able to help it. You just will use them all the time because it's.
We are running out of time. What I'm really curious about, I could sit here and talk to you all night, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners. I'm seeing comments in the chat room about what a good show this is. But one thing I'm curious about is when you talk about the superpowers and that we have 24 of them. But you talk about that we only need 9. What would those 9 be?
Well, it depends on the person.
It
depends on the trajectory. So if you were meant to be musical, you were meant to like play in a band and emanate your frequencies through like the flute that you play in an orchestra. That's a totally different bunch of innate abilities than someone who's going to be a negotiator of contracts for, some political organization who's waking up, right? They're going to use a completely different set of skill sets. So, for instance, for that negotiator, what they would want to be able to do is simultaneously be in the room while seeing the 30,000 foot view of what's going on with every person in the room, so they could understand what would be in the most harmony for all. They also would want to be able to individually read each of the people's energy so that whatever needed to get said to bring everyone into harmony and congruency, so what would happen that was in the highest, so that's the second innate ability they would need. They would also need to come from a place of being able to commune multidimensionally with everyone in the room, such that the effect of what they're saying would be exponential over just if they were speaking linear 3-dimensional words. There would be more to it than that. Their ability to go direct with guidance would be really important. They'd have to be one with their guidance. So instead of listening to their guides and trying to hear some words, them and their guidance would just be one. That's another innate ability. For the musician, it might be the creativity that transcends linearity, such that they come up with things that are beyond what's ever been played. The next thing is, again, they might cross over with the guide thing too. I think most people going direct with your guidance instead of waiting to hear some voice from the sky, which is so, old school. It's like very slow track. When you just are one with your guidance realms, you just act from that guidance. The other thing is playing what presents. For them, what would be really amazing is to go direct with the expansive nature of creation, such that they didn't have to think about what they were playing. They just played what would be most beautiful by going direct with consciousness. So what we call that is doing what presents rather than thinking about it. You slow down the process when you think about it too much. Can you see like the difference of the innate ability?
Oh yeah, totally. I'm totally feeling that.
So, and what has to get out of the way in order to do that is, in order to do all of that, you can't be worried about what your father did to you when you were 3. You can't have protective mechanisms that, protective mechanisms that you invented in response to the fact that your mother was a narcissist. And therefore what happened is everyone else matters and you don't, so you turned off your feelings. If you turn off your feelings, it's going to be really hard to have your innate abilities because your innate abilities are based on instincts, which are in the spectrum of feelings. So what we did, the most important step, this is really interesting, Joyce. One of our innate abilities is to be able to, one of my innate abilities that I use a lot, given what I do for a living, is to teach people how to transmute thousands of limitations and their history in hours instead of in decades or lifetimes. So you can transmute thousands of old belief systems in minutes and hours by, for lack of a, we don't have much time, but let's say a toroidal, something that's a torus, that is kind of a technology that came through during the wakened dreams. That technology is part of our innate abilities, and I use it all the time and teach people all the time. In order to be fully present to your innate abilities, you can imagine that you can't have all the filters from your past there, or what they do is they pinch off your ability to flow directly with consciousness because you're afraid that someone's going to judge you, or you're afraid that someone's going to reflect that you're not enough, or you're afraid that you're lovable, or you're afraid that, what you're saying is stupid, or all the fears that we have. In order to transmute those exponentially, consciousness already invented tools to be able to do that so that you don't have to spend the rest of your life working in coaching sessions or Reiki sessions or doing EFT and tapping or doing, whatever technique. It actually is possible to do hundreds and thousands of them at once, depending on where you are in your journey. And if you can do that, you can actually get on with being the piece of the puzzle of heaven on earth much faster. Just the reason I'm saying that is because I want everyone to open the portal to that being possible for you. To step out of the old paradigm that you have to work I don't know how many people that are listening to your show that are really exhausted with analyzing every little thing that ever happened to them until they're blue in the face, and yet still the patterns come up. And what I'm talking about is that within our innate abilities, which is what you actually, and get out of your way, the program the flagship program that we teach, we literally, that's what we show you, is transmuting all of that. And then you carry it with you wherever you go. You can do it all day long, every day if you wanted to, but every time something comes up, you can get rid of every little piece that's associated. So that is possible. Just talking about that possibility opens up the portal to it happening for you. So you want to really us even talking about our innate abilities opens up the portals for those innate abilities, right? It doesn't help you. It's not an integration, and it's not actually doing the innate ability, but it is absolutely an essential step to getting there, right? It's paramount to getting there. So, it's all part of that journey back to ourselves. All of it.
You know, it's funny because when you were talking about instances in our life that we keep rehashing or holding us back, I can still see that. My mom was like that. She had lost her mom at a young age, and her dad ran off with another woman. She was raised in an orphanage, and her grandmother died when she was young, and she was going to become a nun. She didn't become a nun, so she was being punished. Anything bad that happened, I'm being punished because I didn't become a nun. And it was just like, she would call me at 11 o'clock at night crying about my brother who they were having a tough time. But, you know, it taught me something. I was just like, I'm not going to be like this. I'm not going to sit and worry about things that are in the past and that I can't control. And even in the present, if I can't control something, I'm not even going to think about it. It's just, it's not worth it to me. It's too much negative energy and too much wasted time for me to sit and think about, you know what, Sharon over here, she misunderstood something and I said, and now she's mad at me. Well, you know what? That's not my problem. It's Sharon's problem. If she misunderstood something and I said, and I tried to explain to her what was going on and she doesn't accept that, then that's not my fault. I won't take that responsibility.
Well, the cool thing about what you're saying is we even want to, so there's one little thing that I'm looking at your hologram, Joyce. So while I'm looking at your hologram, can we do one last thing?
Yes, we can.
What we want to do is we want to be free and clear that we want to have no entanglement with your mother anymore, because as long as it's entangled with your mother, which it is energetically, because as soon as you say something like, I don't want to be anything like her, I don't want to be like that. As soon as you do that, you just connected yourself with her energy, which means that instead of using your wisdom, which would sometimes tell you that it might actually serve to have some concern about something at some point or to have some awareness, if it looks anything like being like your mother, you won't have the freedom to access that way of being. So what we want to do is we want to completely disconnect it from your mother by saying, instead of, I don't want to be like your mother, what we want to do in the world of living above the cloud, because as long as you're entangled with your mother saying, I don't want to be with her, you've got a cord to below the clouds. What we want to say is, I want to perfectly do exactly what's presenting in every moment according to my highest wisdom. And that has no connection to your mother at all. It's not like your mother. It's just like Joyce. And what we want to do is we want to be as much like Joyce as is humanly possible. Can you feel the freedom in the way, what I just said? Can you feel?
Oh, like totally.
Okay.
Totally.
So that's the kind of paradigm shift that I'm talking about, is completely disentangling from all of that history in totality, such that you are totally free to be all of you.
Got it. Unfortunately, we are out of time. I wish we weren't, but we are. Before we go, do you want to give your contact information one more time?
Sure. I also wanted to tell people that we have a Get Out of Your Own Way retreat where exactly what we've been talking about is it's like, it is our flagship. We only do it once a year, and it's 13 people in a room with me, where we're in nature, we're on a mountain it's just amazing. And what I do is I actually witness and see the holograms of everyone, and we move through everyone, and each person's journey exponentially affects the other, and we create that torus, and it's just like the most amazing transcendence of your history and all the shoulds, musts, and have tos, so you can go on that exponential journey of coming above the clouds and see who you really are. So that journey is coming up, and right now, as of today, the last day for the discount on that program was actually today for all of my clients. It was a $445 discount. But what we did for you guys,
listen up.
Until July 31st, only for people listening in, we kept the $445 discount until July 31st, and you will see all about that retreat on that wideawakening.com/wolf spirit, where those 2 recordings also are. Go and listen to the recordings, because you'll get a little bit about the retreat too, but those 2 webinars are flipping amazing. So make sure you, like, whatever you do, just make sure you listen to them. They're so powerful. They definitely extrapolate on what we taught there about receiving. So go and listen. And if you want to find out more about the retreat, it's actually on the same page, and that $445 discount price is on that page, and that's just for you guys.
Okay, so did you say that's Wide Awakenings?
It's thewideawakening.com /wolf spirit. So thewideawakening.com /wolf spirit. And if you page down, you will see the 2 free webinars, and they're so flipping juicy. And the retreat is already a little bit over half full. So if anyone really feels the connection with me and you're just really ready for the fast track, then absolutely come play.
Okay, I'm trying to put it in so I could put it up in the chat.
Uh-huh.
And it's not coming up.
www.thewideawakening.com /wolf spirit.
Thewideawakening.com /wolf spirit.
You got it. And what it will take you to is a place where you have to put in your name and email, and then off you go. So I will send it to you by Skype right now so that you can have it. All right.
Okay. Got it.
Okay. So that's that. You can copy it, but it's a redirect link. So, yeah.
Maybe Colleen can stick that in there for me because I'm actually
I already did.
using the tab. Oh, thank you, sweetie. You're the best.
Look at you. You rock. So there you go.
Yeah, Colleen's amazing. All right, Jennifer, I so appreciate you being on the show. It's been wonderful talking to you once again. And I hope I can, you know what now? I look forward to doing your retreat one day because I'm going to be there.
Well, I would love you to, oh my God, Joyce, for you to experience that. It's such a quantum leap. I would love for you to be there, any day.
And I'm going to one day. It's just, right now it's not a good time, but we're getting there. We're getting there.
Yeah. And it's even possible. So just, let's see.
I know it is.
Right?
Yeah, totally.
So, my dear, I'm giving you a great big hug. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you,
hugs to you too.
Colleen, for working in the background, and thanks for being a part of the Heaven on Earth construction crew, Joyce.
And thank you, Jennifer. We'll talk to you later. You have a good night.
Okay. Bye.
Right.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye, everyone.
You're listening to Haggy Shack Radio at haggyshack.com.